Welcome back to Mind Pump TV, guys. I'm your host, Danny Matrenga, and today I'm going to give you some tips and tools that you can use if your goal is to gain a little bit of muscle, but also just put on some overall body mass. Let's get into it. So in my experience training and working with a lot of individuals, especially youth athletes and people who are in quite a bit of a hurry to put on some body weight, one of the biggest things I've noticed is simply not eating enough food seems to be the largest problem. Now, part of the reason is because people simply just don't understand how much food they need to eat, and they also select the wrong foods. Now, if you're somebody who is in fact what we would call a hard gainer, you're probably moving a little bit more than the average individual. And that extra movement, not just the training you're doing, but the extra fidgeting, the extra pacing, all the things that hard gainers kind of tend to do that the average person doesn't, those calories really add up. And we have to offset all that expenditure with some high quality, nutritious, and calorie dense foods, right? Because regardless of your goal in the gym, whether it's to build strength, to build muscle, we probably are going to do better in some form of calorie surplus. And that can be really hard for a hard gainer. So I want to share with you some of the biggest tools and tricks I've used with clients that I've worked with in the past that have really helped them add some quality weight to their frame. So before I dive into the foods and kind of the grocery list I give to all my clients who I might classify as a hard gainer, I want to make sure you guys get your hands on the hard gainer guide we put together. It's a completely free resource loaded with tips and tricks, kind of aligned with nutrition like this video, but there's also some training stuff in there that you guys will find very valuable. I'm going to make sure that link is in the description below, so please click that, check it out, and grab the free hard gainer guide. I promise you'll like it. So a few really common things I see with hard gainers, and some of the most common questions I've gotten from the ones that I've worked with are, how often should I be training? How many meals should I eat in a day? Okay, so in terms of training, I find that people who struggle to gain muscle, they don't always have a problem going to the gym. They actually quite enjoy it. Many actually end up training too much. The primary problem, again, is not getting in enough calories to offset the calories you're expending with your day-to-day activity. So meals and such, and how many meals you get in throughout the day actually end up being quite a useful strategy. So what I would recommend is at least 4 meals a day. I usually have my hard gainer clients using 1 meal as a shake, and then several meals with an adequate size of semi-fatty protein, some quality grain or some type of rice or potato dish that's easy to get down, some fruit, and potentially even some fat source like nuts, cheese, dairy, things like that that you can quickly get calories in. So before we even get to the foods to have on hand in terms of training structure, oftentimes hard gainers need to train less and eat more. Simply put, you're just expending too much, and you can get a ton more out of your training if you're training less, but training with better quality and better intent when you are in the gym. So the first thing I see with most hard gainers is they prioritize protein a little bit too much. So because protein is so commonly associated with building muscle and building tissue, hard gainers often emphasize getting colossal amounts of protein, which is great from a muscle building standpoint, but it's tough to get enough calories in when all you're eating is protein. So because protein is so satiating and it fills you up so much, I recommend that the people that I've worked with that are hard gainers, they actually eat a little bit lower on the range of acceptable protein intakes. So if we consider the optimal range for muscle growth is between 0.7 to 1 grams per pound, I recommend people who are hard gainers a little bit on the lower end of that spectrum, so closer to 0.7. The second thing that you should focus on is still getting some form of high quality food. You don't want to go full on garbage, junk, dirty bulk and just eat a ton of crap food, right? You want to get some nutrition in with what you eat. So I still recommend the law of 80-20, eating largely nutrient-dense whole foods 80% of the time, and then opting for those foods you really like that might be slightly processed or not natural for the other 20%. That way you have a quality amount of food and also something you can enjoy. Now, when it comes to the foods themselves, the first thing I always recommend is some form of nut or seed butter. Okay, these are high calorie foods that are high in quality fats, they're high in protein, they have a fair amount of carbohydrates. You can add them to a smoothie, you can put them into a shake, you could put them on a piece of bread, and it's a fantastic way to add calories in very quickly. Another option I really like is full-fat dairy products like milk and yogurt. Unless you have some type of dairy allergen, the ability to get high-quality nutrition, protein, carbohydrate, and even fat from full-fat dairy products like yogurt and milk and cheese, it's pretty tough to beat. So that's a great option to have in your repertoire. As far as getting carbohydrates in quickly, something that a hard gainer might want to do around their training session, I love fruits, grains, and cereals. Things like rices and potatoes are great as well. Things that you can cook very quickly, that have a relatively fast rate of digestion, that you can get a lot of down in a very short amount of time. While vegetables are fantastic because they're so fibrous, you can only eat so much at once, and they're actually really low in calories. So I do recommend hard gainers emphasizing some of those less fibrous, starchier carbohydrates in favor of vegetables for the bulk of the carbs in their meals. Now, I'm a big fan of smoothies for people who struggle to gain weight as well, because you could put protein, you could put fruit, you could put nut butter, you could put literally dairy, all the things I mentioned into one smoothie. And you could blend up 1,000-calorie smoothie and start your day with that and give yourself a bit of cushion in regards to hitting your daily calorie goals. But at the end of the day, guys, the big thing you need to take home is you should have a lot of these foods on hand to make it easier to get those calories in so you don't fall behind and you don't end up having to make garbage, bad food decisions later in the day and just eat really high calorie, low nutrition options. I think if you prepare well enough in advance, you'll have no problem getting enough calories in to offset what you're burning, and you'll find that gaining mass and gaining muscle is a very achievable process. All right, guys, so just to wrap it up, make it really, really simple. If you are a hard gainer, you're probably moving a lot more than the average person. Your training 9 out of 10 times is on point, so is your protein intake. The things you need to focus on are getting enough fuel and enough food throughout the day to actually put on tissue. So keeping those high calorie foods on hand is going to be your best bet. It's going to prevent you from missing any much needed calories or meals. And again, before you head out, make sure you download the Hard Gainer Guide. The link is in the description. There's a ton of valuable information on training, as well as we kind of extend today's dialogue around nutrition and give you some even more value there. Have an awesome day, and thanks again for tuning in to Mind Pump TV.